another beautiful day here in quarantine. It's so crazy thinking about the turn of events that's occurred over the past month, but honestly, I'm just trusting in the unknown, surrendering to the universe. I feel pretty good considering I'm not working. I've never felt this kind of abundance like from within, so I'm kind of leaning into that, and I thought what better time to record my second YouTube video than right now when I have a bunch of time on my hands. Let's hope that you can hear me through this video because it's a bit windy out here, but it's too beautiful of a day to not be outside. So I made a post earlier this year on this coaching program that I have begun. It's called Hungry for Happiness, and I'm studying to become a life coach, where I will be coaching people through their struggles with food and body. And I wanted to share why this subject is near and dear to my heart. Since I was 15 years old, I've struggled with eating disorders and body dysmorphia. And not until a year ago did I start to identify these stories I had been living in that caused me to be perpetually stuck in these negative thought patterns. I grew up in Hawaii, where we would walk around in swimsuits all the time. We were known by our Instagram handles throughout the island, and it was totally normal for us to just be posting pictures of us at the beach in our bikinis all the time. And it's kind of what we started, I believe a lot of girls in Hawaii started attaching their self-worth to their physical appearance. And it was really, really tough just because that was the norm. Not only were we always in our swimsuits, but people would talk relentlessly about girls' bodies. If you gained a pound or two, people would talk about it. Also, when I was 15, I cut weight for my first wrestling tournament, which I was praised for the discipline I had and how I looked and the control I had. So that also started making me associate my worth with that kind of control and discipline. And about a year ago, which was when I was 23, I'm 24 now, and all this stuff kind of started happening around when I was 15 years old, I discovered that the reason I was stuck in these negative thought patterns was because I had been identifying with this story since I was 15 years old. And what happened was that my boyfriend at the time and another friend of mine would tell me that they were only into really skinny, really fit, really lean girls. And that's what happened. The story that I told myself about that was that if I didn't look that way, I wouldn't be loved and nobody would think I was attractive. And I lived in that story for the rest of my life. My junior year of high school is when I started developing anorexia. I pretty much ate barely anything for a whole year. And this was while I was doing absolutely insane wrestling workouts 6 times a week. I wrestled at 98 pounds. That was my weight class. And I was consistently weighing in way underneath that, which was just ridiculous. That was the lowest weight class that existed. And I could have done a lot better, and I hadn't wanted nothing more, or I thought in my head I wanted nothing more than to win states, but I lost, and I likely could have performed a lot better had I been heavier. So what that showed me was I cared more about being skinny and not eating than I did about wrestling. This whole time I felt very in control, and I think a lot of these issues started to develop because when I was younger, I didn't have very much control in my life. My parents split when I was 3, and they absolutely hated each other. Every time that they would talk, it would end in them pretty much screaming. And so I believe that some of these issues stemmed from, a difficult childhood. Having this sense of control while this was, while these issues were first developing felt really good. However, that can't last forever. Your body needs fuel, and when you stop giving it fuel, it will rebound at one point. And so after about a year, at the same time, my boyfriend from high school left for college because he was a year older than me, and I felt like I lost all sense of control that I had. When he left, I started to fill that void of loneliness with food, and I finally started, eating food that I had restricted for myself for a really long time, and I felt super out of control with it because I had put it on this pedestal where I wasn't allowed to have it. So then when I finally eat it, I would go crazy. And since I was still wrestling in this time where my body was kind of rebounding against me, I would starve myself for a whole week pretty much, eating 800 calories a day while doing these insanely intense 3-hour long practices. And then I'd make weight, and then after the tournament on the weekend I would binge, and then I'd have to starve myself again. That's what I thought, just to make weight. And I did that for like a whole year. It's really crazy thinking about how much I've put my body through, and like how it's really never let me down no matter how much I've disrespected it. And I'm just gaining so much compassion for myself and my body for being able to make it through all of the bullshit I put it through. And then I finished wrestling my summer after my senior year. That's when I had my last nationals tournament, and that was when I had no reason or no outside source kind of telling me that I needed to be this certain weight anymore, even though of course in my head I still thought that. I didn't have an external driving force to help me keep that weight down. And that's pretty much when my body rebelled against everything that I had been doing. I couldn't control my eating any longer. It had been so long since I had just allowed myself to eat like a normal person, and I would wake up hoping not to mess up that day by eating too much and not listening, to my fullness cues. But I could not. Once I started eating, I couldn't stop. And that would start from the beginning of the day until the end of the day. I felt so out of control. I felt like it wasn't me who was doing it. It felt like this animalistic part of me that I couldn't control anymore. And I'm talking about eating thousands and thousands of calories in a day. Then I went to college and I started my freshman year, and within 4 months, I had gained like 25 pounds. I'm 5'1", and my natural weight is probably around like 105, 107 pounds, and I got up to like 124. I felt so disgusting. I felt like everybody thought I was disgusting, and I felt like nobody could possibly be attracted to me at that weight. People would tell me that I, didn't look bad or whatever, but it was so internal what was going on that no matter what anybody said, that's what I believed about myself. I really, truly hated myself and what I looked like, and I just want to hug that person that I was, because all she needed was to be told that she was perfect just the way she was. And around halfway through my first quarter of college was when I started making myself throw up after pretty much every single time that I ate. I felt so out of control with what was going into my body that I felt the only way that I could, fix or undo what was happening was to purge. And that was an extremely, extremely difficult time of my life. I don't think I've ever felt so worthless and so much hate and so much disgust in my life. And I honestly, there was times where I didn't know if I was gonna make it through that. But luckily, I knew that I was so strong mentally through all the things I've learned throughout my hardships in my life, wrestling too. Like, I knew that I was in control of my path of my life, and if I wanted to fix this issue, I could. And so I promised myself that I would never throw up again, and I was able to stick to that because I knew if I didn't, I could die. And I went home for Christmas break, and it was still really hard mentally because even though I had stopped throwing up, I still couldn't control my eating. And so I was still not sure like what was wrong in my mind and my body and why I couldn't like get hold of this issue. And I was still so disgusted with myself that over that break, I went 5 days without eating because I thought that was the only way I would get back to looking a way where people would love me and people would think I was attractive. And the third day of that 5 days, it was Christmas. And after I started doing that, people noticed and they started complimenting me and commending me, saying that, you know, I looked like I lost weight, I looked healthier, and society's view of what's healthy is so fucked up. Like, I didn't eat for 5 days and people were basically telling me that that was okay. And our physical appearance has absolutely nothing to do with our worth and our health. We associate those things together in our society, and it can be, you know, you can reach what looks healthy in the most unhealthy mindset and actions, and it's disgusting, and we should not be putting our worth on our physical appearance. Our worth is totally internal. Our bodies are just our vehicles of our souls, and it's ridiculous to me that so many of us believe that our worth is just dependent on what we look like. I pretty much continued to not eat for a while. I was in this restricting and binging cycle, but I had lost some of the weight I had gained, so I was feeling better about myself, and I was pretty much going through all of this completely alone. I didn't have any help, and I was just fighting a constant battle 24/7 in my head. And it's pretty crazy how, you know, nobody really knew. Like, I was dealing with this all alone, and I could have shared it, but I thought it would make me look weak or negative or, you know, not make me look good, so I didn't share it with anybody. But it is insane what people can be going through in their heads alone, and we should always be kind and compassionate to people because you have no idea what they're going through. When I got back up to college after that Christmas break, I did end up going to a dietitian for a little bit, and she recommended this book called Intuitive Eating to me, which pretty much saved me. It really was liberating reading the book and learning that I could really listen to my body if I just took the time to get back in tune with it. And I'm still 5 years later working on integrating those habits back into my life, because I haven't been able to eat intuitively since I was like 12 probably, but I've really improved through the help with that book, and I was able to gain some normalcy in my life as the months went on. And then I got into a new relationship in college, which gave me a crazy amount of joy and kind of got rid of that void I was feeling that I felt like I had to fill with food. And I felt so much love and happiness from that relationship where I no longer needed it from food. I no longer needed the food for comfort. So I thought I had actually recovered completely throughout that 2-year-long relationship, and I had returned to my natural weight. However, I was still finding that fulfillment and love and happiness through an external source, not within myself. So once that relationship ended, I began using food to fill that void again. And this cycle has happened several times throughout my life. I've gone up and down 20 pounds so many times, and I am finally getting down to the root cause of my issues, and that is through this program that I'm in, the Hungry for Happiness program. I'm beginning to learn what needs I have not had met internally since I was a child. I had been 100% neglecting my 6-year-old, 12-year-old, 18-year-old self and not thinking about what she was going through or the pain she felt, and figuring out what she needed at that time by meditating and listening to her, asking questions like, how can I love you more, and what do you need most right now? I've been learning so much about needs that I have been dealing with and trying to meet with outside forces, outside vices such as food, drugs, alcohol, you name it. There's so many different ways, social media, that we try to fill our needs that have not been met, and we go through life and these needs just keep not getting met, and then the issue gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? That's why we use things like food for things that food is not meant for. Food is supposed to be fuel for our bodies. It's for physical hunger. If we are using food for any other reason than for physical hunger, to fuel and satisfy our bodies, then we are using it to meet a need, and that food is not going to meet that need, and it's likely going to make us feel worse about ourselves. And then you get put in this perpetual cycle of continuing to use the food because you think it makes you feel better in the moment, and then it makes you feel worse, and then you go and go and go, and you don't know how to get out of it. And so I'm learning so much about what's been going on in my life that has caused me to, use food as a vice so much. And I am really excited to take everything I learned, take my experience, and help others who are dealing similarly with emotional hunger or eating disorders or body dysmorphia and all of that. Trying to figure out, what drives all of my actions in my life right now has been really, really interesting. And I'm super excited to help other people discover why they are the way they are in their situations in their life, and help them figure out deep down who they are and what truly drives them, and how to break out of these bad cycles and habits that they might have felt trapped in for their entire lives. So I really appreciate anybody who watched this video and listened to my story. It's pretty cool how a year ago, I wasn't even able to talk about this stuff without crying before I could even speak, and now I'm able to just share, because I know that through sharing what I've gone through, hopefully I can help other people through whatever they're dealing with. So thank you so much again for watching this, and I'm super excited to share what else happens for me on this journey. And by December, I will be a certified life coach and specializing in food and body, though I do want to expand that and help people with any part of their life that they are kind of stuck with. So again, thanks for watching, and I hope to see you soon.